Now, welcome back to the channel, all my hustlers and grinders and go-getters, the ones that wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, say, I'm gonna get this money. We're back with another one. It's Matt and the JoJo. So make sure you smash that like button. And we got a special guest today, don't we?
Oh, we do. We do have a great guest today. And, he's going to be at the Junk Expo. But if you can't make it to the Junk Expo, you can learn some tips and tricks here and just get to know Kevin Hess because he is the author of Leading with Grit. And he's really going to talk about all about leadership and how you can become a great leader, a better leader, and, just be more confident in leading your crew. So right away, I do want to say, before we dive in, to leave a comment and, comment one word that describes the best leader you ever had. Maybe there was a teacher or a boss or somebody that really, really helped you. And, throughout your life, that person just stood out as a great leader to you that has taught you, great things. So, just one word that describes them is all you need to do. Put that in chat. And we already have people saying hi. So good evening and thanks for joining us. And like we said, we have Kevin Hess in the building. So let's bring him out.
JoJo, you can't forget. We got 72 days until the biggest junk removal event on the West Coast, the Junk Expo. 72 days left. I'm excited.
I'm super excited, but I get more and more excited like a kid at Christmas the closer it gets. It's the Super Bowl of junk removal.
What is going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
So I'm going to sit back and just soak all this game up and all this information up that you're going to drop tonight.
Yeah, we have a new team member on our team. We have 2 full-time people now. And so I've been reading more of the Leading with Grit and wanting to, we want to be good leaders. We want to be good role models. We want to be good mentors. And we want them to feel really good about the job that they're coming to every day. So we're really excited to talk to you today.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. So the very first thing that I had to ask you is what does grit mean to you in the context of leadership?
Grit is, to me, is all about that perseverance. It's about work ethic, work ethic, but more importantly, it's about being resilient, being able, to bounce back from failures, learning from your mistakes. The whole point of Leading with Grit, if any of you has seen my previous book, Leading with Purpose, when I first posted about that and put that book out there, I posted it on the Facebook groups for junk removal. And one of the first questions I got was, what does this have to do with junk removal? The real answer has everything to do with this. Is everything that I did in order to, grow my 1-800-GOT-JUNK franchise and, from 800,000 to $9 million. But that question kind of was eating at my brain for a while there. And I was doing something and, I just looked up leadership. I put it in Google. I was looking it up for something and I happened to click on the images and what I saw was people in shirt and ties. I saw people sitting in desks at a boardroom, conference room. And I felt like people in the blue collar industry don't really look at leadership because that's what they think of when they think about leadership. This is part of the corporate world. Has nothing to do with us, blue collar in the trenches, work boot guys. This is, so I thought about it. I'm like, people don't understand that it can apply to them. So that's where I came up with the concept with Leading with Grit, because this is something that is directly for blue collar leaders. Yeah. Because, leadership comes in many forms, but, in the blue collar world, it's really unique. It's not the traditional, office-based leadership. Blue collar is rooted in the action, in, respect and trust and more importantly, that hands-on in the trenches, leading from the front. So
Yeah, I completely understand and agree with that. I feel that actually with what we do, leading from the front is so much it's so important
yeah,
because you're not just sitting behind a desk, you know, giving, what you want your workers to do. They're actually right there with you,
yeah,
alongside you, and everything you say and everything you do is an example of how it should be done, right? So it's so much more, actually, it's so much more important because they're watching you. They're seeing how you interact, they're seeing what you do, and they're seeing the good stuff, but they're also seeing the not so good stuff. If you're being sneaky or if you're doing things that aren't good, that you don't want your team members to do. So, leadership has everything to do with running a successful business.
Now,
yeah,
for the
especially.
viewers that don't know, Kevin, you took 1-800-GOT-JUNK, what, in Georgia, from 800,000 and 9 million? How long did that take to do that?
Well, the funny thing is, for those first 7 years that I was there, that we turned that 800 million or 800,000 into 1.5 million. It was a slow creep. It wasn't until realized there was a difference between being a manager and being a leader, and that took a mentor, giving me some really straightforward, advice, and had me really do a gut check with myself, and tell me that I was probably one of the best managers in the whole entire 1-800-GOT-JUNK system, but I wasn't a good leader. And I really didn't realize there was a difference between the two, because I've been in management for 20 some years at that point in different industries, and I had a lot of experience in it. So but I didn't realize that being a manager is managing the business, it's managing the processes and systems, but leadership is about leading the people. And what a lot of people don't understand is that's one of the most important aspects of your business. Any large scale junk removal company, if your team is not well trained, if you're not a good leader, you're not going to get to the level that you want to. If you really are serious and you're really hungry about scaling, you have to be able to be a good leader and to lead your team.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And so how do you balance being a leader with grit, but still showing empathy?
Well, that's the whole thing. Being a leader, um, is being in servitude of others, and that empathy plays a huge part of it. One important aspect of being a leader is getting to know your people. I had 50 teammates. I knew all of their wives, girlfriends' names. I knew all their kids' names. I knew, what they wanted to do professionally, what their goals were personally. I knew everything about them. And I got questioned on it at some point, and I had an answer for every single one of them because I knew my people and I knew what they wanted, and I did everything possible to help them get there, whether it be professionally or personally in their personal lives. I helped them set goals. I helped them, I had guys that wanted to set goals because they wanted to save up to get an apartment for him and his girl, and so I had helped him set goals that took maybe 3-4 months to do, and was able to do it because of that. So it's not just professionally, it's you have to be personal with them as well and actually get to know them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, you're changing people's lives
Ye-
when you do it that way. You
that's the
really
whole
are.
that is the whole point, is to change their lives, to impact their lives at a high level, because it changes them. When you do that, they're bought into the business. You know, most people know that, when it comes to junk removal, for most people, team members, usually their burnout date is, maximum 2 years, you know, if you're lucky. Some people don't last that long. You hear people talking on these groups all the time how they can't keep good people. It's so hard to find good people. You know, people are quitting constantly, and the reason is because there's not good leadership, there's not good culture in the business, and that's what people want. If you guys have a good culture, you guys, you say you're learning how to be better leaders, but Julio is a good example of the kind of culture that you had, even on a small scale. You are good leaders because he comes to work, you see pictures of him out there smiling, he's damn happy to come to work because you guys have impacted his life. So, and that's what leadership's about.
Yeah. That's and you don't need a huge company
No.
for needing to be a good leader. This could help you be a better parent, or
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
it can impact your life so much.
Not only, being a good parent, being a good leader at, your business, but also your community. For me, like I said, when I was with 1-800 Got Junk, I had 50 guys. Now I'm by myself. Might have one or two part-time guys and everything else. But being a leader, I found my purpose. So that's why you'll see me on the junk removal Facebook groups, giving advice, helping people out. That's why I wrote these books, because I'm still a leader. I don't have my own huge business to run as a leader. So I find leadership in my community, my junk removal community as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the big shift? Like what happened? I know you said you had a mentor that had you do a gut check and really realize you're not a great leader at the time, you're a great manager. Like what was like the big shift to get from 800,000 to the 1 million, from 1 million to 9 million? That's a big ass number.
Yeah, like I mentioned last year at the Junk Expo, my whole situation, being diagnosed with cancer changes everything. Not only that, being diagnosed with Lynch syndrome, which makes you highly susceptible to lots of forms of different cancer. So knowing that my time is short, because there is an expiration date on me that's, I know. So I knew I had to change something, and I wanted to change something. That's why I talked to a mentor of mine, and I asked him for that advice because I needed to change something. So once he told me that, I started diving deep into figuring out what a leader was. So I started reading a lot of books. I started developing myself as a leader. And as I started doing that, I saw a lot of changes in the business. That first year, I mentioned we had, that slow creep up to 1.5 million. Well, that next year we jumped up an entire $1 million to 2.5 million. And as I started getting better at that, I started, realizing my team needs more. So I upped the training and development of my team. And that next year we jumped up to 3.5 million. And, seeing that they have forward momentum in the business, and that's creating opportunities, just higher level of training for these guys, they felt empowered. So I saw that impact, and I saw, and like I mentioned, that was being a leader was giving me purpose. And I thought about it, and I'm like, what if my guys had a purpose? So imagine, because I'm putting everything, blood, sweat, and tears into this now that I'm being a leader, and it's giving me and finding my purpose. So helping them find purpose, I started developing them as leaders. And that first year after that, we jumped from that 3.5 all the way up to $6 million. And that's when I got really, really intentional with the training, with the development of my guys as leader, creating, new opportunities for them. And, I went into that last year there, very, very intentional. January 2nd, 2022, I called an all hands meeting. I brought in my entire team, and I told them, this is what we're going to do this year. We're going to be ranked number one at the end of the year in all of 1-800 Got Junk, the highest performing franchise in the entire system, 175 franchises. We're going to be ranked number one. Also, we're going to be franchise of the year. We're going to finish off as franchise of the year. And I'm going to start moving people forward. I'm going to start impact your life. I'm going to develop you as leaders, and I'm being serious about it. I walked over to an empty wall. I said, this is my legacy wall. I'm going to hang up your picture as I move you forward. in this organization. So not only did I move people forward in my own, created operations managers, created trainers, I set several of my, because everybody thought I was crazy, thought I was giving them a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. I said, no, this is the goal. And, as I started moving people forward, I had some guys sent trainers down to the other Atlanta franchises to help them and help develop their teams. I sent operations managers to them. I sent one of my guys to Grand Rapids, Michigan, because they were looking for help on operations, and they knew we had like one of the highest ranked operations team there. So I said, you know what? I got a guy here, he's the more I develop into a leader, this was a guy that was he was used to that party life. He, smoking pot all the time. He lives with like 5 roommates. All they did was party and everything. And the more I develop into a leader, he wanted to get rid of that lifestyle. He wanted something more. So I told him, this guy, give this guy the opportunity, and I guarantee it. And I talked to him, and he was looking for that change in his life. So he was within 5 days, he was packed up and ready to go to Michigan. The cold weather and all, he didn't care. He wanted to change his life, and he got that opportunity. I got another guy, became the general manager of the Jacksonville location. I had another guy who became the lead trainer down in Naples, Naples, Florida. And then I sent 2 guys to Los Angeles to be, operations managers. And I was moving a lot of people forward, and there's like, all right, so you have these big, hefty goals. How are you going to hit that if you're getting rid of your best people? You're sending your best people away. There's no way you're going to reach these goals. I said, man, I have an army of leaders that I have developed, and these people are hungry to move forward, and I keep moving them forward and moving them forward. And that legacy wall was getting bigger and bigger. And it was an amazing feeling watching these people moving forward. And the more people move forward, the more people wanted that.
Yeah.
And they wanted to be developed. They were there, 30 minutes to an hour before their start time, just because they wanted that training, and then, they wanted that development. They wanted, in most businesses, you have a one-on-one with somebody, it feels like they're going to the principal's office and they're scared. People were begging me for one-on-ones to help them set goals, to help them, move forward in the business. And you can wanted to show me how hungry they were.
That's so good.
And the more and more that we started, even after I left, the one guy, I had one guy, he that I really, really took under my wing. I had hired him about 2 years before. His brother worked for me, and he had just gotten out of jail. He'd been in there for dealing drugs, doing drugs, and he'd been in there for about almost 5 years. And he got out, and his brother's like, man, nobody will give him a chance. Nobody will get him a job. He really wants to change his life. He wants to do better. He doesn't want to go back to that life. Can you give him a chance? I said, bring him in. I'll talk to him. So I took this guy, I brought him in, and I told him, one of the first things I tell everybody is, I wanted to develop, I'm not here looking for helpers or workers. I'm looking for people I can develop into leaders, somebody that I can train to take my job so that I can move forward as well. Well, I created a lot of opportunities for this guy, really trained him hard. And, the day I left, I promoted him to my position.
Oh, wow.
That's
And
awesome.
it was one of the greatest moments of my life. Well, that was, in 2023. Well, fast forward to this past February, he gives me a call. He's in Vancouver, Canada, at one of the big 1-800-GOT-JUNK, their big event they have every year. They call the kickoff, where they give all the awards out and everything else. And he calls me on speakerphone with some of my other guys that are there. They wanted to share with me that, because I told him, I said, I'm promoting you to my position as long as you keep this legacy alive. Well, he called me that day to let me know, hey, we're all here sitting here on speakerphone, and what we have in our hand, we have franchise of the year. We did it, we continued to do it, these team of guys that I had developed. And after that, he got moved forward. He's now the area director for all of it, all 3 Atlanta locations, all 4. They opened up another location, 4 Atlanta locations. One of the guys that I brought up that was working at Publix as a cashier, he's now the new GM. One of the other guys, he was washing trucks for a freight company that I had brought up and, really trained him into training operations. I really took him under my wing. He's now in Asheville, North Carolina. He just moved out there as the new general manager. And the first guy that I moved out that went to that Grand Rapids, Michigan, this year they made him partner. He actually has a percentage of the business now. They actually made him into a partner.
Wow.
Here are these guys that, needed opportunities and changed their life. Now they're all out here making 6-figure salaries and everything. Whereas before they really didn't have a life, they were just barely getting by.
Yeah.
So it makes me, that's the kind of impact being a leader can be for you.
Now I'm surprised they're not flying you everywhere and having you talk to
all of them.
All of them, like just show up in California, show up in Texas, and just talk to all the franchises. That's really cool of you, for real. From 800,000 to 9 million, and then giving that guy your position, and then him going over there. That's super cool. I know he feels great. His wife's probably super happy how he can just change his life like that, and how his life's so good now. That's an amazing story for sure.
What's one leadership myth that you wish people would stop believing?
Some, like I mentioned before, they think being the title of manager is being a leader. Leadership has nothing to do with titles. You don't have to be a manager or assistant manager or a supervisor to be a leader. I think that people misunderstand what leadership is, and you can be a truck team member and still be a good leader. You can, and I taught my guys that. I had guys that would come in the morning, and the first thing they would do is go to our KPI board, and they see, some guys that maybe had their, their metrics were low, their numbers were in red, they needed help. They would come in, they would say, hey, pair me up with that guy. I'm doing this at a high level. He needs help. Let me help him train him. That's what leadership is. These guys were becoming leaders. They wanted to help impact their lives, help them get, better, because they knew they were already doing it at a high level, and these guys needed help. We didn't look at that board and say, oh, these guys with low numbers suck, we need to fire them. We what do they need to help them get at a higher level? To help level them up. And my guy started doing that. I didn't have to do it anymore.
Yeah, I always thought it would be really great if all teachers did that too. If they see, the kids that are almost always at the bottom, their test scores are always low, don't just write them off as, well, they're just not smart kids. Figure out what they need help with, and then go in there and teach them. It would be a much better place. I wanted the audience to kind of chime in, and I know that a lot of our viewers have smaller businesses, and they're not running a huge corporation with lots of workers. We have 2 team members now, and some of you might not have even known that. It was just Julio for a long time, and now we have Jared. But leadership skills are super important, even if you just have one. Team member.
And that's the good time to start developing yourself as a leader.
Yes.
Because even if you just have one employee, and he's doing a great job, you really love this guy, he's got the best attitude and everything else, that's when you really needed to create that culture. Start building your vision, start building your culture, developing your own skills so that you can start developing him. So that way, when you're ready to start scaling the business, this guy's going to be bought in, because you're going to not only, help train this guy and develop this guy, you're going to collaborate with him, because that collaboration is going to create that buy-in. He's going to want to, he's going to want to go through thick and thin, just like Julio does with you guys. He's going to go and he's going to sweat it out, and he's going to sacrifice time, blood, sweat, tears, just like you do, because he wants to see that company grow to create opportunities for himself. And that
Yeah.
needs to be communicated to your team, you know, whether you have one guy, two guy, or part-time guy, whatever. But it also, you know, that whole point is starting to develop yourself so that you're ready for that scaling and
Yeah.
that growth.
And I would say, you know, a clue that you may possibly need that is if you are finding yourself not being able to keep workers, and if they're not staying around and they only stay for a little while, then they leave. You know, it might be time to kind of take a look at what you could do differently as a leader. So I wanted to ask the audience, what's the hardest part of leadership that you find yourself in today? You know, what are you tackling right now that you feel that you could use a little bit of guidance in? You know, just leave a quick sentence or two in chat, and I'm sure we'll have time to, you know, kind of read it and go over it and then suggest certain things that may help you overcome whatever obstacle, you know, you're finding yourself with when it comes to your workers and team members. Yep. I'll give you guys some time to, you know, leave a comment and ask a question. Do you have
What's
something?
going on, Cisco? I see you out there.
I'm just trying to soak up the game.
Oh,
you
I
guys.
thought you
I'm just
were
listening.
grabbing
No.
So once again, it's leading with purpose, and there is a link to it in the description if you want to grab your own copy or come to the Junk Expo and learn lots of, you know, great tips from Kevin himself. Cisco says a great sign of a great leader is when team players step up and teach and take on the role of a key player and lead by example. Shows you are a great leader. And I'll take a second to just say that, you know, Julio's role has changed slightly, right? And I see so much growth in him because when he first started, you know, he had some growing to do, and boy, did he just step right up and level up and continue to grow. And he's been with us for a few years now. And now he has a worker sitting alongside him in the dump truck. And, you know, he is showing the ropes. And
yeah, he's running the show now. When we first hired Julio, let me tell you, Kevin, he had his hat on backwards. He would show up in his Converse. I'm like, Julio, you can't be wearing your hat backwards. You gotta wear it normal. And then he was just mature, just like so green, right?
Yeah.
And now he has a truck, has a business card. He's teaching our son, I call him Hot Tub, what he needs to do, how to price jobs, how to talk to customers, how to sell himself, and just how to load the truck. So he has a lot more responsibility.
Oh, he has a lot more responsibility.
And he is loving his job. Let me tell you, him and Jared, they love working with us. They're killing it with the tips. Let me tell you.
Oh my gosh.
I told them a few days ago, hey, I might just quit and want to work with you guys and just collect all the tips. No, they're out here killing it. I couldn't have asked for a better team. The culture that we have and the guys that work for us, I mean, no complaints at all. I mean, Jared is awesome. Julio, awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And that actually goes right into my next question, which is, what is your best tip for building a team culture that, you know, your team actually wants to be a part of?
The best part to do that is to have a vision for the business and share that with your team and communicate it often, you know, whether it's a vision or having pillars that you really believe in. You know, if they see that you're passionate about it and that you communicate it a lot, they'll become passionate about it. You know, like I mentioned before, that collaboration creates buy-in. And if they believe in your vision, they're going to sacrifice, that blood, sweat, and tears, just like you do, to help that growth. You know, part of your vision, if you want that business to grow, that creates opportunities for the people that work there, you know, they're going to really buy into that. So, you know, have a powerful vision, and that in itself is going to fuel, you know, I always talk about, motivation versus inspiration. Motivation is, it's a spark. It gets people fired up and ready to go. You can run through a brick wall, but that motivation will fade. That gets them going. You have to continue doing it. But when you have a really great vision, it it doesn't motivate them, it inspires them. And that inspiration that's the fuel. That's the fire that's going to get them really bought into the business. And I mean, that inspiration will last forever.
So you're gonna love this, Kevin. I pulled up on the guys in the dump truck. Me and the Joe were in one truck, and they rolled down their window. I was like, "Hey, the goal is to be the go-to company in Sonoma County. That's the goal." And they looked at me and they said, "Matt, we already are. We already are the
We
go-to
already are
company."
that. That's what
I was like, "Right on. I love you guys even more. Let's go."
See that? They believe in your vision,
Yeah, right.
that they believe in it as much as you do. And that's the point, that they're as passionate about it as you are,
Yeah,
you
they
know.
really care about the business for sure.
And then how do you that it's funny because they lead perfectly into my next question is how do you keep a team motivated when things do get tough?
You know, motivation, what do you use for motive? Most people use money for motivation, it's that carrot on a stick to help them get there. Um, but like I mentioned before, knowing that there's opportunity out there, if you keep, I always preach about people posting, performance KPIs, key performance indicators for their team, because if you walk into somebody's team, whether they have one guy or 10 guys, and if, like, for instance, if I walked in today and asked Julio, you know how do you measure your success with this business, would he have a good answer? So that's why, to me, KPIs are really important, knowing where they stand, if they're succeeding or not succeeding, you know keeping them motivated to, and competitive to reach those goals, to reach those numbers that will, that, to me, that's a huge motivation. I love, when you have larger teams gamifying things, setting goals, and if they reach it, they can get more money doing so. I had all kinds of setups at my office. I had a wheel that they could spin, and if they reach their goals, they would spin that, and it had a different dollar amount. It could be anywhere from $5 up to $50 or whatever. But then we changed that. We changed the wheel to different challenges, whether it be different KPIs, or who could bring back the most metal to recycle, or who could bring back the best picture with their customer. And if they reached the goal, I had this set up. It was kind of like beer pong, where they bounced the ping pong on the floor, and it had like this tiered beer pong thing and the cups had different dollar amounts. And whatever they land in it, they can win anything from $5 up to $100.
Now, when would you offer that?
You
Would you
know, just when I see and I want game momentum with the team, I see that momentum fading and that motivation fading. I want to get them, riled up for the day before they go out there. And, I also had a basketball hoop in our warehouse, and I had a line drawn. If they reach their goals and they hit the numbers they were supposed to, or if they set a goal for that day and they actually hit it, they get to go to that line and they shoot that. If they get it in, they get $50, or they get, that was the money shot, or the super money shot, where they take the same line, but they do it with the football. And if they could hit that, they could get $100, different things like that will help motivate, like that carrot on the stick. But when it comes down to leadership, getting your team motivated, a lot of that has to do with empowering your team. One of the coolest things I ever saw, because we had a morning huddle every day to get the team, hyped up before they left, and get them motivated. But we start off the huddle with talking about all our goals from the previous day, and we see if we hit it. If we didn't hit it, why we didn't hit it, what we can done differently, you know, have the team set the goals for the day, knowing how many jobs we have, how much revenue we needed to hit to, our goal. They knew all that, and they set those goals out there. But I stopped doing those meetings myself. I had somebody from the team doing it,
Mhm.
because it empowered them to be leaders. They would be up there, they'd feel special because they felt like a leader up there. And then everybody watching them looked at them as like role models, like, man, I want to be that guy. I want to be up there, I want to be up there. And then afterwards, do a little training, then at the end, we always, at the end of our huddles, we'd always get the team fired up. Everybody put their hand in the middle. We'd have a chant that before they get out, we get everybody fired up before they went out those doors and jumped in those trucks. So, there's different ways to motivate the guys, and, motivation is great, to get them fired up, because like the first time I ever had empowered some guy to go up there and run that morning meeting, that guy came back that day with like $3,500. He was so motivated. He knocked out every single job. He upsold at every single job. He came back. He was just fired up. He's like, give me more. I'm hungry. Feed me. So.
That's great.
Now I got a question for you. When it comes to like per team you had going out, like what was the daily goal per truck? I know it's different in California, Georgia. So what was a daily dollar amount goal for each truck? How many reviews were the guys supposed to get? And then like, did you guys have them put out bandit signs while they were there knocking out jobs? Like what were the daily goals?
Daily goals. I mean, I'd let them set up a goal. I actually had, you guys saw me at Mindset Matters talking about OKRs. And, setting those goals. I'd have my team do those goals. That's just not for leaders, and that's not just for managers. Like I said, I was prepping my guys to be leaders from day one. So they would I had it on their route journal for the day. I'd have those goals set up, and I'd have them set it, whether it be how much revenue they want to bring in that day, or what they needed to hit their, KPI goals, or, one of their teammates needed some training. They'd set that as their goal. But most of them was, on average, our goal was at about $2,000 for each truck.
Okay, cool.
But they would also set goals for themselves for, Google reviews. We tried for like a 20 to 25% return rate. So every residential that job they went, if they can come back with 20% of them, they were doing pretty damn good. But we had a lot of different other KPIs that would go after. All the KPIs that we did, we made them all effort based, showing that they put in the effort.
Yeah. Can you say what KPIs stand for in case somebody's listening and they don't know?
Yeah. Key performance indicator is a different measures you measure, because, what gets measured gets improved. So it's really important to measure what matters, in your business. And a lot of junk removal companies that I talk to, when they start measuring those KPIs for their team, a lot of them use COGS. And every one of them, I tell them I don't agree with that. COGS is something for the business owner. COGS is something, if you're bigger, you have operations manager, that's a metric that they should be focused on. The team should be focused on different type of performance, average job size, getting those Google reviews, revenue per hour. There's a whole bunch of metrics that they can go after that you can measure their actual performance that's effort-based. I don't believe that COGS is one of those, which it seems like a lot of people do that.
Okay.
Now, how much did you guys pay them for each sign they took down? I'm just kidding.
We actually didn't do that. I see that a lot. And,
no, I'm just kidding.
There was a business. They actually opened up a location a block away from us, and they were like heavy yard signs everywhere. They were taking ours, putting theirs, and everything else. And I had one guy that started taking theirs and putting them. He even went to their locations one night. He went out like in the middle of the night and with his buddies and put out like 20 signs in front of their building and stuff like that. But I told him to stop doing that. And, and I threatened to fire him, because that's not, integrity was really important to us, and I didn't believe in doing that.
Right on.
So I just want to remind our audience that if you do have a leadership question or something that you're struggling with right now, leave it in comments and we will, answer it to the best of our ability. And my next question for you is, if someone's brand new to leadership, what is the first thing that you would have them focus on?
They're people. Being a leader is in servitude of others. Being a leader, John Maxwell, he writes some of the best leadership books out there. He's one of the best leadership speakers out there. And he'll tell you that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And that's influencing the people around you. It's not micromanaging people. It's not, command and control. It's all about trusting and inspiring people. People think that leadership and management has to be that command and control. And that'll get you really poor retention with your employees. That'll get you constantly changing, new people coming in and having to go through that hiring process, and which is a pain in the butt. But trusting people and inspiring. A lot of junk removal businesses, they can't get off the truck, and they always complain they can't get off the truck. I've had so many phone calls from people like, man, I can't get off the truck, because they believe that nobody could do it as good as they can, right? Because they don't trust their guys. They don't train them to do it as good as they can. They don't trust them that they could do it. And so they're going to be stuck there on the truck forever. They're never going to grow. They're going to stay at that plateau because they're not wanting to be a good leader and train and develop somebody to do it, because it might turn out that they could do it better. So, and that a lot of people don't understand that. And that's what forget the command and control, because people think that's what leadership is. It's just be a hard ass, get on them, fire them, oh, they messed up, fire them. They got low numbers, fire them, instead of helping them and helping them grow, giving honest, candid feedback. That's what helps people grow. That's why we did a lot of role plays in our training, so that they're ready to handle any situation out on the truck by themselves. Anything, any curveball that any customer can throw at them, any objection that they have, oh, I can't, this is too much money, or this and that. Any objection they have, any scenario, they knew how to handle it, because we did, part of our training was doing role plays. It was the most important part. And the most important part of those role plays was afterwards, giving that feedback, giving honest, actionable feedback to help them grow. Not to hurt their feelings and tell them, oh, you did a horrible job, because nobody passed those scenario trainings, those role plays the first time. Some had to do it several times, but the whole point is every time they did it, they learned from it. And that's what helped them grow.
So what would be one good example of like a role play scenario? What would you role play?
We'd start off, and with our training, we started off, something as simple as the call ahead. What key points to hit on that call ahead. Finding out, confirming the time you're going to, their appointment window, finding out, what they have that they were picking up, being able to, plant that seed to find more junk before we get there, letting them know, hey, I see you only have a sofa today. I'm just wanted to let you know, we are fully licensed and insured. We can go anywhere in your home. Start listing off places like the attic, the crawl space, the basement, garage, backyard, shed. That way people are starting to think about it before they get there. So, when they get there, they might be able to find more junk. So that's, key points to hit that when they do that call ahead role play, finding out, making sure that you're confirming the time. Then different scenarios, just building rapport with the customer. That's, doing role plays, starting off just maybe 1 to 3 minutes of building a relational rapport with the customer, trying to build that relationship, not walking into a customer's house and being straight transactional. Hey, how you doing? I'm Matt. Where's your junk? They're going there and they're talking, they're just that small talk, finding out, being observant. Oh, I see, you're into, the Falcons and everything. You start talking football, or you see their dogs, just, everybody loves their fur babies. So you start talking about their dogs, your dog, you're talking about your dogs and just relating to them, then, that's another part of the training, hitting those key points, be able to keep that rapport going before you even start talking about the junk. Then you get into, then they have another point, role plays, where after the relational rapport, you jump into relevant rapport, basically finding out why they're getting rid of the junk. And that's a key point to hit is finding out why, because finding out why they're getting rid of the junk, you find their value keys. And those value keys are usually either time, space, or effort. So you can, that way you can save that information. So when you do give the estimate, you can establish the value of your service by actually, utilizing that information that you learn from building that rapport. So finding out why they're getting rid of the junk, you find that out during that report, then you go see the junk, and then different role plays we had, where they, oh man, that's just too much money, or how to actually establish the value of the service or handle those objections. So, we had all the way down, we'd, we would make it so challenging. We didn't want to make it easy. We wanted them to not get it the first time. We wanted them to learn from it because we wanted to give that feedback to them, and that was an important part of developing our team. And when they finished, when they were able to hit every single one of those scenarios all the way down to the end, even with commercial jobs, we did it with that. When they finished that, they became certified. And trust me, when those guys became certified after all that, now we're celebrating all that hard work and effort that they put into that training to become certified. That's special to them. We shouted them out. We celebrated them. We gave them certificates. They felt special and empowered. I am certified. I can go out there. I don't need anybody, looking over my shoulder. I am empowered. I am out here doing this at a high level now.
So now my question, because I'm curious, was there a booklet? Was there something that they could, like read and memorize? It had like bullet points so they knew what the comeback was. Like if if a customer says, "Oh, that's too much money," or "Oh, I need to talk to my my husband," or "I'm not ready yet," or I mean, was there something they could read so that it prepared them for like the monologue?
We basically, when they started off, we had them with our lead trainers. We had a team of trainers, some of our lead guys, because, after they became certified, the next step up would be to be a senior lead. And part of that senior lead, yes, you make more money, but in order to have that position, you had to, one, have your numbers up at a high level for like a certain amount of time, but you had to lead. You had it, whether it be in operations, whether it be in training, because everybody wanted to be in the training and help people. So they would start teaching them. And then they would also, they had the scenarios that they can look at, and we change it up on a constant regular basis. And before that scenario starts, they would tell them what key points they want to hit. But they would practice that, in the truck when their other team, when they're with whoever they're riding with that day, they would practice, they would role play in the trucks as well. But they would come in for training early in the morning. We'd have a couple trainers there to help them, walk them through it, they knew how they do it. Plus, in our morning huddles and stuff, we would do trainings on that kind of stuff on a regular basis, that keeping that continuous education with them.
So they didn't necessarily have something that they could read where it was like that you say this to the customer and then.
No, they had everything that they had to memorize everything. They had to, make sure that they, it was all about problem solving, being able to problem solve on their own.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why we changed it up every single time. We didn't keep the same scenarios. We had a vault of scenarios, and they had the freedom to change it up and throw as many challenges at them and curveballs as they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the viewers that don't know, Kevin, tell them about your training that you do that I'm actually going to take you up on for the guys. I definitely want to do that. I'm going to get on your schedule. Just for the people out there that are watching right now, what do you offer?
The one you're talking about is my on-site experience training, teaching people how to close those jobs at a high level, building rapport with the customer. And, believe it or not, there's a lot of guys that you see in these groups that are, these 7-figure guys and everything else. A lot of them have taken my training. These big names that they've taken my training, and I'll give you an example, because one of some of the things that you're going to learn in that training is, like I mentioned before, building rapport, establishing the value of your service. How do you do the estimate and how to close the job, It shows you how to handle all those objection handlings, and then basically putting everything together, which I call the perfect pitch, so that everybody is intentional and does it the same way. And they're able to close those jobs at a high level. We were closing 95 to 96% of every single job that we put our foot in, on site. So, and then most importantly is the role play training in order to train the teams. So, those, for me, that is a really, really good training program that I do. I also have, operations manager training for some of the higher ups. This is not for somebody that's, just starting out, for 1 or 2 man crew or whatever. And I'm also developing, I'll have that before the junk expo, is I'm having a leadership training as well. So I have a lot of different types of trainings and everything else, but to me, that most important one is that on-site experience training. And when I put that together, that training, I started it off at my Atlanta franchise, and, because with 1-800 Got Junk, their training was this 2-page thing. It's called the 10-day training, and it lists off a couple of things. It's on 2 pages, and they said, use this. And that's it. Most of them didn't even use it. They just threw the guy on with a guy that's been here for a while and say, learn from him. That was the training. And I'm guilty of doing that for years, but that's why I really took that training and I pumped it full of steroids and wanted it to be important to the guys and wanted to make it challenging so that they can go out there on their own and feel that confidence when they walked into a customer's home. Like I said, 95 to 96% of everybody's house that they walked into, they walked out with junk. There was no excuses. There was no, that's not my customer. That's, that customer's too cheap. That's, none of that. That everything, if that's not my customer, well, why not? Let's make them our customer. They're cheap. Well, we can still close that job, finding out what their priority items are, and having a whole negotiation process, having a protocol that goes with it. There's a lot of different things that are involved with that. And that's why, to me, this is like one of the most important parts of that training. And other franchises started using it, because we had gotten bought out by this company, and they had owned like 6 other 1-800 Got Junk locations. Well, that company now, and they bought out all the Atlanta franchises. And then they started buying off other franchises as well. Right now, my training is being used in 30 different 1-800 Got Junk franchises.
Right.
And when they do their top performer rankings, they always talk about the top 20. At the end of last year, 17 of the top 20 franchises were using my training.
Oh, wow.
That's
tells
awesome
you,
right there.
That tells you right there. So
Yeah.
you said you had an offer at the expo. Am I correct?
Yes. At the expo, we're going to be giving away 1, maybe more, of that training. You see people, Cisco's on here. He's taken my training. He's up there. He's talking about it right there. And it's a great investment. And it's, when I started that training in the junk removal groups, I made it really, really affordable because I wanted to utilize it for the new guy, the rookies, the guys that are just getting out there starting. They needed a leg up, because they're the ones that were complaining about not being able to close jobs. But it turns out that the guys that are out there making 7 figures, they're still hungry to learn. They're still learning stuff. They're the ones that were reaching out to me and really doing this. But this is really something special for the guys that are just learning how to do this, because you could be closing jobs at a high level like they do at, these 7-figure companies, or 1-800 Got Junk making $9 million a year. You could be doing it the same way. So that, to me, is important. I'm going to share a little story with you. You guys might know. Do you guys know Taylor Chastain from Up and Away Junk Removal?
Yeah, actually, I see him in the Facebook groups all the time. Yeah. Young guy.
Well, yep, he's a young guy. Well, you were talking about Julio before, very immature, backwards hat and everything else. I wanted to tell you a little story. I had done my training in person with him because he's about 40 minutes away from here. So I went in and trained his team on this. And when I got there, the first people I noticed were these two goofballs. They were actually roommates. They were in college. They lived together. They were the biggest immature goofballs ever, right? So I started, as I started going through this training, when I finished it off, I utilized a lot talking about leadership. And I went at the very end, I went into how important leadership was going to be for this business, because that Taylor wanted to really grow this business and he wanted to create opportunities for the guys. And I really got the guys super fired up. And then when I left there, that I told Taylor, I said, "When's your next team meeting?" He's like, "Oh, it's in the end of the month." I said, "Well, that guy there, that guy's got a lot of potential. I want him to lead the meeting, not you." And he did. And that guy was so empowered after that. All he wanted to do was more. Give me more to do. Give me more to do. A couple months down the line, this guy's the new operations manager. Fast forward 10 months down the road, Taylor invites me to their this was this past December, their end of the year sales meeting. And, the team was there, the whole team was there, and, they were going over a bunch of stuff. Well, when I walked in there, I expected Taylor to be running the meeting. I was wrong. Those two goofballs that I mentioned before were leading the meeting. They had become exceptional leaders in that period because they saw that inspiration. They saw that vision. They wanted to be a part of it. They wanted that opportunity to grow with the business. They were leading this meeting. I was flabbergasted that these two became such an amazing leaders in this amount of time, that these two goofballs were running this meeting. They were running role plays with the team to help them. There was one guy, the guy was struggling so hard in the role play. He couldn't get it out. He was shy and just not very outgoing. And he was really struggling. And so they stopped the role play. And one of the guys said, "Look, Colton, if you believed in yourself as much as we believe in you, you can do something really special here." And then everybody stood up and applauded this guy. And they got him hyped up and they got him fired up. And this guy killed it on the role play.
Oh, that's
But
great.
that's what leadership, these guys, these two goofballs became the biggest, best lead. I almost left there in tears because I was just so proud. It was like, having your kids grow up and doing something special. But that's what leadership is. And now that they're using that training as part of their culture, everything about it, they're doing role plays on a regular basis. Everybody on that team is so highly trained. Taylor wasn't able to go on vacation before because he had to be in that business. Now he's going on vacation all the time. These guys are running the show without any problems, and that's what a lot of people burn out from junk removal, because they can never get off that truck because they don't train their team. They don't become good leaders. John Stromberg just went on vacation. He was struggling, and I went there and helped his team. And just seeing him go on vacation and doing all these great stuff, getting away and getting refreshed and rejuvenated, so he can get back into the business and start working in the business instead of on it. And that's why it's important, combining that training and development of your team and being a good leader and developing other leaders in your business. That's how your business starts growing and really you're ready to start scaling that business.
So Cisco says that it's a great resource and additional process, mindset, and tools to add what you're already doing, or to just adapt as the way you approach your customer service in the beginning. So he really, really liked what you did, for sure.
Yeah, Cisco was one of the first people that took my training.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Run to the bathroom real quick.
He'll be right back. But
Okay, Andrew.
Andrew.
So I did have something, towards the end as we start wrapping up, is what is one grit challenge that our viewers can take like home to do this week? Like some sort of thing that you challenge them to do for this week that would make them be a better leader.
Well, the one challenge I want to give them is to give themselves a gut check. All right. I want them to walk up. I want them to look in the mirror and ask themselves, what are you doing really, really well in this business that is making it move forward? But then what are you not doing that you know that needs to be done in order to level up? And why are you not doing it? No excuses, no fluff. Look in the mirror, hard look in the mirror, and answer that question to yourself. And then get off your butt and do it.
All right. It was a gut check.
Okay.
And I asked him, I said, what's one good challenge that you can give our viewers that they can take and do this week that would make them a better leader? And he said to
go stand in front of the mirror and give yourself a gut check and ask yourself, what am I doing really, really great right now that's really moving the needle in my business? But then what am I not doing? What do I need help with? What am I making excuses about not doing that? I know will move the needle, but I'm just not doing it. And ask yourself why you're not doing it. But no BS, no excuses, just, get off your butt and do it. No more excuses. If you don't know how to do it, find out. Find somebody who knows that is doing it at a high level and collaborate with them, call them up, ask them how they're doing it, and have them help you. Don't let your ego get in the way from you asking for help. A lot of people let that ego make them think they already know everything. They don't need any help. They don't need any, to reach out to anybody and ask for that. No, forget that. Ego is your greatest enemy in business. So, put your ego to a side, look in that mirror, and answer that question as truthfully as possible.
And I totally agree. That's why I sat back and just didn't really talk that much. I was just soaking up the game that you were giving. And I totally agree with you. When people think they know everything, you don't know everything. We learn every single day. And that's another reason why people should come to the Junk Expo. I got to put it out there. You're going to learn from so many people that do things different ways to make money and how to advertise their business and just learn from the best in the business. Like, we got you there. It's going to be there as a vendor too. You're going to do the gut check there. I mean, you got knowledge that a lot of people don't know. You ran a big franchise that made over $9 million a year. Yeah. Straight killed it. You know what I mean? If you want to learn how to do something like that, you're one of the guys you want to talk to.
You'll absolutely love the Junk Expo. You're going to be there. You're going to network with lots of like-minded people. Hundreds of people that are doing junk removal every day at all different levels. You'll leave motivated. You'll leave with all kinds of gold nuggets to go right away and implement into your business. It's a game changer. It will change the way you do business. I absolutely guarantee that. I absolutely do. Leading with Grit. You can get the book in the description down below. I put a link. And if this video helped you at all, gave you any type of knowledge, and you know other people that it would help, share it, give it a like. And also, if you learned anything, comment Grit in the comments down below, because I would love to see 100 grits.
We only got a few people on here, though, JoJo. We're not going to get 100 grits.
Someday we'll have 100 grits. I think positive.
But I'm going to say it like this. So the Junk Expo is going to be the place to be for sure. And I mean, I'm going to learn so much. I can't wait for it. We got 72 days until the expo. We're excited. And Andrew's giving away a dump trailer there at the event. And I'm hoping someone out there that just started their business is brand spanking new wins that dump trailer. So I'm hoping for that. And I can't wait just to connect with a bunch of people that we see on Facebook every day posting. So that's going to be really cool too.
We got our first grit.
Yeah.
Grit, right?
Hey, you know what? And all those people that are going to be at the Junk Expo have one thing in common. They're all hungry. The reason they're going there is because they're hungry to do better, to do more. They have that grit and tenacity. They want to, they're ready to put their egos and leave them at that door. You know, at the entrance, maybe I'll put a basket out there, leave your ego here. And that's the whole reason they're there, because they understand that they don't know everything. Even if they're killing it at a high level now, they know that what got you here will not get you there. And they're ready, and they're still gaining knowledge as they go. Because there's going to be some big guys there making that, you know, high 7 figures. They're making those millions out there, but they're still hungry. And that's why they're going to be there too, not just the little guy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that is what makes you successful in life, is to always striving for the next level and always striving to learn more. And just to me alone, I just like the vibe. I like talking to all the other people and meeting subscribers that have been watching our channel forever, and you get to like hug them and shake their hand and get your picture taken with them and say hi. And then they almost always have like one question, like, you know, that would help their business so much. And we're personable like that. Like, you can't just come up and ask a question. And you know, I know for a fact that when we first started this business, if there was a junk expo, we would have been to it. And we would be even further than we are now, because we would have learned it further, you know, earlier on.
Yeah, because all it takes is a couple, 2-3 tips that you can take away from it that can change your whole business. That can be in sales, that can be how you either feed your Google My Biz, anything. Just a few little things can change your business and make you thousands of dollars. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
I wrote down 10 pages of notes at the last Junk Expo. Even somebody who has done it at a high level, I was learning so much from so many people. You know, like I said, I had like 10 pages of notes from that day.
Yeah, we got Barry Hartman. He's out there in Canada. He's going to be there. He's doing $5 million a year. We got Jake Steels is going to be there. He's doing $4 million a year. We got Dan's Holloway, which he does stuff totally different.
Totally different.
He just removes furniture. That's it. Furniture removal, and he does it different. And
and that's one reason why I chose him, because I want people to see a new, totally different way you can make money that you never thought of. And we have some, you know, surprises too with vendors of people that can really help you with your business. So we're looking forward to it. Last year was great, but it was our very first one. And like I said, you learn as you go. So this one's going to be, it's bigger. It's already bigger. And we already have way more people.
It's going to be 2 days. So 2 days of just soaking up all that knowledge is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of surprises, you know, I mentioned that, you know, I'm going to be giving away a few of those, you know, on-site experience trainings, but I have another surprise that I'm going to be unveiling at the Junk Expo.
Oh, really?
Not before. It's hard for me to keep my mouth shut about it, but I have a surprise to unveil at the Junk Expo.
Right.
Oh,
so if you want to find out what it is, you're going to have to come.
You're going to have to come. Yeah. You know, so if you're on the fence and, you know, you really want to come to the Junk Expo, we're not doing one next year. So just so, because I don't want people to think, oh,
it's a lot of work putting it together. For sure.
We're not. We're not doing one next year. So just to let people know. So if you're on the fence, definitely come. You won't be sorry. You'll be so happy that you made it there. You'll meet incredible people. You get to meet Kevin Hess. You'll meet Matt and I and so many others. We have really big speakers, and we're going to show you branding and how we did that. But it's just, I can't even explain how great it is, because you'll walk away being so glad that you came. So glad.
Well, that was a good live, Kevin.
It was. Thank you, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Absolutely, guys.
So don't go nowhere. I need to talk to you backstage. But for all the viewers out there, make sure you smash that like button. And just so you know, the whole month of August, Andrew is covering $50 of your Junk Expo ticket. Andrew with Autopilot. So if you want to get your tickets now, use promo code Andrew and save $50. And that's just for the month of August.
Yep.
After that, there's
They're regular.
They're regular prices.
They're regular prices.
All right, guys. Hopefully you like this video. Smash that like button, and we'll catch you on the next one.